I almost didn't make it back up to start the service because the whole crew from the Montgomery County Partners for Animal Welfare just walked in with cats, and that was really exciting. Cats, that's coming up later in the service. Our chalice lighting is by Lee Kinvey. This chalice is for the living, for the changing, for the becoming. This chalice is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are in other people's stories. This chalice is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show you how to get where they expected you to go. This chalice is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting not by number but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself from a light deep inside. Startling, vivid, a new voice that already knows you. Finally, a true story we can only tell together.
Good morning, and welcome. Welcome to this place of lifelong learning and growth, this place where we bear witness and where we lean in, this place where we seek the truth of one another, this time in which we behold and embrace the fullness of this life and this day and this time made sacred and holy by each and every one of us. Today, we continue exploring our spiritual theme of transformation, a theme that we attempt to weave through worship and learning and the work that takes place between the Sundays. Whether this is your first or second time here, or if your memories haunt this place, this is a space made for and by each one of us. And now to start our service, I'd like to welcome our youth choir to come up and share our opening song. Come, let us worship together.
In today's worship service, we're talking about showing up for each other. Sometimes that means doing something nice for someone, and a lot of the time, it means just being present with someone. The example that came to mind was a famous pair in a children's book, Frog and Toad. This is a story from the collection, Frog and Toad Are Friends. It's called The Story, and it's about they're taking turns showing up for each other. One day in summer, Frog was not feeling well. Toad said, "Frog, you're looking quite green." "But I always look green," said Frog. "I'm a frog." "Today you look very green, even for a frog," said Toad. "Get in my bed and rest." Toad made Frog a cup of tea. Frog drank the tea, and then he said, "Tell me a story while I'm resting." "All right," said Toad. "Let me think of a story to tell you." Toad thought and thought, but he couldn't think of a story to tell Frog. "I'll go out on the porch and walk up and down," said Toad. "Perhaps that will help me think of a story." So he walked up and down and up and down, but he couldn't think of a story to tell Frog. Ugh. Then Toad went into the house and stood on his head. I'm not going to do that. "Why are you standing on your head?" said Frog. "I hope that if I stand on my head, it will help me think of a story," said Toad. Toad stood on his head for a long time. He must have had a lot of practice. But he could not think of a story to tell Frog. Then Toad poured a glass of water over his head. "Why are you pouring water over your head?" asked Frog. "I hope that if I pour water over my head, it'll help me think of a story," said Toad. Toad poured many glasses of water over his head, but he could not think of a story. Then Toad banged his head against the wall. "Why are you banging your head against the wall?" said Frog. "I hope that if I bang my head against the wall hard enough, it'll help me think of a story." I'm feeling much better now," said Toad. Toad, said Frog. "I don't think I need a story anymore." "Then you get out of the bed and let me get into it," said Toad, "because I don't feel so good." Frog said, "Would you like me to tell you a story, Toad?" "Oh, yes," said Toad, "if you know one." "Once upon a time," said Frog, "there were two good friends, a frog and a toad. The frog was not feeling so well. He asked his friend the toad to tell him a story. The toad could not think of a story. He walked up and down the porch, but he couldn't think of a story. He stood on his head, but he couldn't think of a story. He poured water over his head, but he could not think of a story. He banged his head against the wall, but he could not think of a story. Then Toad didn't feel so well. The frog was feeling better. So the toad went to bed, and the frog got up and told him a story." The end. "How was that, Toad?" said Frog. But Toad did not answer. He had fallen fast asleep. So I invite you to think of who can you just show up for this week? Obviously, you don't even need to come up with a story. Who can you be there for? And I now invite children and youth to go to their classes.
We hold so many joys and sorrows in our hearts and in our lives, of course, in this world that is so full. We come here not to escape, but to embrace. Today, we hold the hurting of the world in so many fronts, from Haiti, rocked by violence, to the incredible heartbreak of the family of Lex Benedict, as well as other trans and non-binary youth whose lives are increasingly at risk in today's hostile political climate. We also lift up the lives and the suffering of all those children of the world who will go to sleep tonight with hungry bellies, and those children in Gaza and around the world whose hunger in these very days has been too terrible to survive. The work of peace is not just the business of other people in some other place and some other time, but it is the business of us all. And we're reminded that there's no such thing as other people's children. And this very week, our frayed nerves are resurface as the memories remind us of this time 4 years ago when the world shut down around us, as we were making phone calls and strategizing, where this very congregation adopted the COVID-19 policies, where the pandemic changed our lives forever. For those lost, of which there were millions, and for those who helped others make it through, which is each and every one of us, we light yet another candle of the loss and of the love. I now invite you into a time and a space of presence, contemplation, and prayer. Sitting deep in your seat, lowering your gaze, or perhaps even closing your eyes in this space. This morning I share a prayer for hope by the Reverend Kristen Green. Spirit of love and truth, help us to feel you in our breathing in and our breathing out. Quiet our minds, even if only for a moment. Still our bodies, even if only for a moment. Soothe our souls in this holy moment. When uncertainty pervades, give us rest from worry. When fear rises, give us peace. When pain surfaces, give us a balm. Some of our spirits are so weary. Some of our bodies feel fried. Some of our minds feel frantic and uneasy. How long will this last? We ask in desperation. Spirit of life-giving love, remind us of the cycles of life so that we might turn toward the dawn, turn toward the thaw, and turn toward the rebirth of spring with new hope. Make that hope alive in us. Ignite that hope so it burns brighter than our fears. And may that bright hope shine for others to witness. That our faith might be a beacon and our love a lamp to light the way. O luminous Spirit, fill us with gratitude as we turn toward one another in the human family, never alone on our journeys, always reminded of a greater love that holds all. Blessed be, may it be so, and amen. I now invite us into a time of silence, after which we will sing together, Comfort Me.
A profound and abiding way that we find comfort in complex times is through acts of connection and acts of service. Here at River Road, every month we extend our offering to a partner organization in the community that extends our ministry well beyond our doors. And this month, we are so delighted that our Extending the Offering collection goes to our longtime friends and partners at MCPA, the Montgomery County Partners in Animal Welfare. And I believe we have some ambassadors, if you'd like to come forward today. Now, this work that MCPA does is an opportunity to be of service not only to animals, but to the people who love and care for those animals, and to the kindness and the open-heartedness of our entire extended community. If you could come like right up here so people could get a little bit of little kid. See, the kitties are in blankets so they can stay warm, because that's what you need to do. MCPA has a bi-weekly pet food pantry that last year gave out 80,000 pounds of cat food and dog litter. There's medical care for special surgeries and conditions when owners can't afford it. There are enrichment items literally for every animal in the county shelter, brought to bear by these loving people out of love that has touched and moved their lives. MCPA provides limited spay and neuter for underserved residents and are part of a coalition to get a county-funded, no-cost spay and neuter clinic for underserved county residents across our region. This cat-kitten socialization work that you see right in front of you, the spay-neuter adoption programs for stray cats and kittens who are trapped outside so they can find a forever home, all of this work extends not only our love for animals, but our sense of care and connection for who we are and who we want to be as a part of an interconnected world where all beings are whole, respected, and honored for the inherent worth and dignity which we carry with us everywhere we go. You can make your gifts here in our Extending the Offering time in all the usual ways, and indeed throughout the month. You can give on our website. You can give today in the collection. The baskets will go around. You can text to give 73256 and the amount. The offering box is in the back. When we extend this care, we extend our hearts, and we grow indeed into the community that we have always aspired to become. And don't worry, you can meet and mingle with the kitties and this precious, perfect dog in the fellowship hall right after the service. Thank you so much. As the choir sings, I invite you to extend that generosity outward from this place into the waiting world. The thing about a great story or a great work of art is that it holds its own place in the sweep of time while we come back to it again and again, sometimes from very different perspectives. It is a conversation we can keep having. We can perceive a great story through one interpretive lens when we encounter it for the first time and return even decades later to find that surprises still lay there. Broader perceptions linger that have been waiting all this time for us to catch up with them. Example A, a story I swear, preached too many times. A story you have heard for the umpteenth time. A story commonly known as the Good Samaritan. Surely we return to it for a reason. What is it that story is telling you on the first reading, the 4th or the 400th? What was it telling an audience of first century Jewish listeners in the rural outer lands of Jerusalem? And what is it telling us now, thousands of miles and thousands of years away from that place? On the surface, it is framed around this ancient, this familiar question, not unique to any one faith, tradition, place, or people. This question, which in every single translation of the text has always been attributed to a lawyer. A lawyer, posing it always to the son of Joseph, the very first person in all of recorded history to be called in print Rabbi. You know him as Jesus. Who is my neighbor? That's the question that the lawyer asks the rabbi. Who is my neighbor? And the way we usually tell it makes pretty morally easy sense. The message is so safe. Your neighbor is the one who needs you. Your neighbor is the one who shows up for you. Your neighbor is the one who stops when you are wounded. So go then, all of you, and do likewise. The lawyer and the rabbi team up to communicate this safely moralistic message. Go then. It is so often a simple tale with a simple answer. But every story worth telling over and over again. It has multiple dimensions, and this story has many, not the least of which is an invitation to go deeper and admit that beneath that question, who is my neighbor, you can hear another question that is still being asked in every nation, in every bloody altercation, in every household, in every congregation today. Not just who is my neighbor, but whose pain counts as worthy of my attention? Whose pain counts as worth either the smallest or the greatest risk to both my body and my spirit? Whose pain counts and when? With only a little creative extension, one might also read inside this story the equally contemporary question, who am I allowed to hate? It is the same exact question we ask today when we open the newspaper, or since only my family still gets the newspaper, open the computer screen. It is the question we ask when we walk down the street, when we are shaken and when we are afraid for our own safety. It is the question we ask. And we cannot get underneath the easy moralistic story unless we excavate a little bit for those deeper questions. So let us once again try to do that. Who is lying in that ditch, beaten and robbed? Who is the wounded man? In this text, he is a Jewish man, just like the original Jewish listeners. They are meant to relate quite deeply to his pain and to his very real struggle. That man is them. That man is us. And the next two characters we meet are the men who pass by, the priest and the Levite. The story says the ones who do not stop are also in this first century frame framework relatable, decent, responsible leaders of first century Jewish life who have plenty of reasons, most of them very good, to pass right by and keep walking. It is a dangerous road they are on. As Martin Luther King himself put it in his own retelling of the Good Samaritan story, it is possible that those men were afraid. You see, the Jericho road is a dangerous road. I remember when Mrs. King and I were first in Jerusalem, we rented a car and we drove from Jerusalem to Jericho. And as soon as we got on that road, I turned and I said to my wife, I can see why Jesus used this road as a setting for his story. It is a winding and uncertain road. It is really conducive for ambushing. In the days of Jesus, it came to be known as the Bloody Pass, and you know, King wrote, it is possible that the priest and the Levite looked over that man on the ground and wondered if the robbers were still around. And so the first question the priest asked, the first question the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me in this dangerous, in this terrifying place? What will happen to me? It is a reasonable question posed by reasonable people in terrifying circumstances. And the outcome still at the end is a man bleeding by the roadside. Even so, would you do otherwise? Would I? If the people who pass by are themselves solid citizens, honestly afraid, then who is the one who stops? Who is the one who shows up? Who is this Samaritan? Modern biblical scholars are often quick to point out that the Samaritans and the Israelites were both Semitic peoples. They were relatives. They were cousins locked in a struggle. Racially, even ethnically, they are the same. And yet they held religious and political differences that set them at bloody odds with one another for generations, tracing literally decades, hundreds of years of intractable struggle back to a profound disagreement about where and how to worship and which exactly were the most holy places. Each claimed descent from Abraham. Each, along with others in that same time period, said they and they alone had the true understandings of the patriarchs and their God. They'd been undermining and hurting each other, even sacking each other's villages for as long as anyone could remember. These people united by heritage and history and hope. This was not a battleground of racial or ethnic difference, but an ideological, a religious one. It was a family fight. And so to the earliest Jewish listeners of that parable, the Samaritan, the one who stops, would not just be some stranger, but the actual personification of their people's own long-standing enemy, like your cousin who has always had it out for you, being the only one who could save you in the end. And the man in the ditch would not just be some guy in need of help. He would have been you and me and any one of us finding ourselves alone and in need, when only the one we have been trained from birth to despise can save us. We call it the Good Samaritan, but if we wanted to reclaim it, we would be more accurate if we called it that time when your horrible, mean uncle whom you hate was the only one who gave a damn. So what do we perceive when we read the story again? Who are we willing to take from the story into our own hearts? A story that we thought was just advising us to be nice people. Who is my neighbor? The lawyer asks, the question ringing through the ages. The one your entire soul has conditioned you to turn away from and disregard? What will happen to me? First ask what will happen to them. Whose pain must I attend to? The one you have been taught to hate? Who will save me when I cannot save myself? Those who you despise will be the only ones who can save you in the end. And while nothing at all about history or religion or politics translates neatly across the ages, moral questions are one thing that almost nearly does. in that great moral questions and greater moral failings of apparently decent people who lived in a former age are the exact same moral questions and moral failings that face all of us today, apparently decent people struggling not to pass it all by in this bleeding age that is given to us. Not to put too fine a point on it, and I have described this here before, but do you know where the ancient land of Samaria is located today? What borderlands, that dangerous winding road prone to ambushes, meanders between, that road from Jerusalem to Jericho? Samaria is smack dab in the middle of the West Bank. And walking down that exact same literal road from Jerusalem to Jericho today means crossing very dangerous territory prone to ambush indeed. Today, the remaining Samaritans in that place, because there are still Samaritans living in the West Bank, are neither Jewish nor Palestinian, but they are citizens of Israel, often living in predominantly Palestinian towns, simultaneously older than this conflict and unavoidably swept up into it in a way that puts their lives and souls in danger. With increasingly blended identities and torn loyalties, Samaritans in the West Bank today struggle to survive in the shadow of settlements and the risk of Islamic extremism, both of which put them in danger. They have done so since long before October 7th. They are still there. Every story has its layers. Who is my neighbor? Who do I get to hate? Those are the questions that were relevant then. Those are the questions that are relevant now, and not just over there somewhere else in conflict zones across oceans, not just elsewhere, but right here in our own nation, in our own time, in our own hearts, where battle lines between ideologies and identities are the very tools that are wielded against the strength of our own democracy. Where an inability to perceive and respond to the suffering of others is touted as a qualification rather than a categorical disqualification for high office. Where the whole of our political system wields selective compassion as a weapon. And showing up for those in pain is actually mocked as weakness or evidence as insufficient loyalty to nationalist ideals. Today we look across at our neighbors and wonder who is with us, who against, who is threatening to the very existence of the ones we love, and who is on our side, and who is there to save us, and who is worth saving, no matter what, in the end. We live in a time of conflicting narratives, utterly irreconcilable realities, nearly separate worlds, until we seek and seek and seek again after some deeper way to perceive each other in the midst of our despair. Some profound, even ancient way that the people facing these same intractable questions have attended to them in the past, to the pain of their age, even as it passed them by. Rabbi Sharon Brous is a clergy leader at ICAR, which is a Jewish community in Los Angeles, and Rabbi Brous's work and her preaching have been something of a guidepost for me in these impossible to interpret months of war and suffering. For her own congregation and for the world, she draws from both modern and ancient stories of the Jewish people to help find a way forward by looking back. And she wrote recently in the New York Times about an ancient Jewish ritual dating from around the 3rd century, just after the Christian Gospels. This practice she recalls and preaches from is for her, she says, a North Star in these days, in this time when so many of us have felt we are drowning in an ocean of sorrow and of helplessness. It comes from the Mishnah, a Jewish legal text from that 3rd century, and describes a pilgrimage ritual during the Second Temple period in Jerusalem. In her words, describing an ancient ritual of her people. Several times each year, hundreds of thousands of Jews would ascend to Jerusalem, the center of Jewish religious and political life. They would climb slowly the steps of the Temple Mount and enter its enormous plaza, turning to the right en masse, circling counterclockwise the temple and the sacred space. Meanwhile, those among them who were brokenhearted, the mourners, and here I would include the lonely and the sick, would make the same ritual walk up the same staircase, but they would turn to the left and circle the Temple Mount in the opposite direction, every step for them against the current, driven by whatever heartbreak, whatever suffering they carried in the core of their being, and each person coming from the right, encountering someone in pain against the current from the left, would stop, look into that person's eyes, and inquire in the words of an ancient question and a more ancient blessing, "What happened to you? Why does your heart ache?" My father died, a person might say. There are so many things I never got to say to him. Or my child is sick. We're waiting for the test results. Those who walked from the right would then offer a blessing. "May the Holy One comfort you," they would say. In the words of their most ancient language, "May the Holy One comfort you. You are not alone." And they would continue the walk until the next person, fighting against the tide, approached. Imagine the people gathering together in the most sacred places, moving past one another while the brokenhearted and the suffering demonstrate the courage it takes to push against the grain of all those who are comfortable and compliant. Imagine everyone, every single person in the community understanding that the moment when they meet the pain of their neighbors, the moment when that pain pushes up against their own comfort, is in fact not only worthy of attention and blessing, but the most sacred moment that two people can encounter one another in. Why does your heart ache? It becomes the most liberating, most essential of questions, because once it is asked and once it is answered, the doors of the heart cannot fully close again. Why does your heart ache is a question that serves as a pathway for showing up, such that nobody's pain is disposable, and the simple courage of our attention might in turn give rise to the greater courage of our waiting actions. As Rabbi Brous put it, showing up for one another does not require heroic gestures. It means training ourselves to approach each other's suffering even when every instinct is to withdraw. We do not need more heroes. What we need, first of all, is one another's attention. Across the barriers and the borders, in the family fights that tear apart nations, in the religious rivalries that crystallize into geopolitics, in the essential identity formation that can all too easily tip over into us and them, that leaves no room for shared humanity. Now, Dr. King, he loved to preach about the Good Samaritan. Dr. King, in fact, had a Good Samaritan sermon that he trotted out on the regular like a road show. Most of us preachers have one or two of those, the ones we go back to again and again and again, and for him it was this. He loved to stand before people in the mid-century of this country, broken and bleeding and hoping and hurting, stand before the people who turned right and who turned left, stand before the people ensconced in the blessedness of their safety and those fighting against every grain, to stand before them in pulpits all around this country and imagine over and over again a path for this nation of ours, through a story he reinterpreted time and again. In the words of his own imagination all those years ago, "Now you know," he said, "we use our imagination a great deal to try to determine why the priest and the Levite did not stop on that road. At times we say they were too busy on their way to a church meeting. an ecclesiastical gathering, and they had to go on down to Jericho or they would be late for their next meeting. And every now and then we begin to wonder, he said, every now and then we begin to wonder whether maybe they were or were not going down to Jericho to organize a Jericho Road Improvement Association, and duty called. That's a possibility. Maybe they felt it was better to deal with the problem from the causal root than get bogged down with the individual effect. Maybe they were not wrong. But I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me. I'm going to tell you what my imagination tells me, Dr. King said in all those pulpits all over this country. I imagine that the first question the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But by the very nature of his concern, the Samaritan reversed the question, as well we must. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? When we practice in small and immediate ways, attending to the broken hearts and broken bodies of those nearest to us, by extension, we find ourselves pushing back at the instinct to withdraw from the pain all around us. An instinct that has been, is being, and will once again be used to undermine the very interconnection that could save us all in the end. Showing up for each other's pain, asking what will happen to him before what will happen to me. It does not in and of itself take the pain away. It is not a peace plan. It does not fix it all. But it opens a way. It clears a path. When we err on the side of presence, when we err on the side of attending to each other, asking truly what it is that makes the heart of our neighbors ache, when the pain of those bleeding in those places near and far from us can enter our souls, then our broken hearts stretch wider, and the power of all that would seek to divide us weakens, so that we may indeed be the ones who save each other in the end. May it be so in ever greater ways. May it be so. And amen. I want to say thank you to Schwei and to, of course, our youth choir, who just made my heart happy, and not because one of them is my child, but a little bit. For our whole tech team who keeps making it happen every single Sunday, and everyone who brings this place to life with your care. Particularly today, I want to lift up all our volunteers for Shelter Week, because indeed, Shelter Week starts right now. If you have cooked, volunteered, signed up, done anything for shelter, they're probably all in the kitchen. There you are. Thank you. This is the week where we provide all of the food, the support services at the Montgomery County Shelter. It is our 36th year providing food and supplies at the Rockville Interfaith Women's Shelter. We still need just a couple more things, so there is an opportunity for you to register, provide breakfast, come to the shelter to serve dinner. There is a sign-up table that will still be in the fellowship hall, and you can sign up online. Also, our Earth Ministry team is meeting today at 11:30. It'll be in room 23, which is down there, and you can find out about the incredible work that our own River Roader, Holly Elwood, does in her work on greener construction materials at the EPA. So it'll be an opportunity to learn about some incredible commitments that our own folks do that change the world. Also today, our AIM team, I know our Action in Montgomery Broad-Based Interfaith Organizing team is here today. Our AIM team will be in Silver Spring at an action calling for universal pre-K here in Montgomery County. It's going to be from 2 to 4 at Harmony Hills Elementary. And all you have to do to make your voice heard is just be present, be a part of the team, and say that every single kid in Montgomery County matters too. Also, our Middle East Task Force invites everyone to join an upcoming video and discussion series starting next Sunday at 3 with a Zoom discussion as part of a lecture series from Fordham University on history in Israel and Palestine. You can find a link in the e-weekly and connect to those much deeper conversations. Finally, you all know it is stewardship season. It is that time of year. When we talk about what it means to commit to upholding this place, not only in the year to come, but in the generations to come. Pledging is different from giving in that pledging allows us to plan. It literally allows me to sit with a spreadsheet and ponder how we are going to make this ministry happen in the coming year. A pledge is a promise. It's saying this is what I think and know to the best of my ability I can give to help support this ministry in the months that lie ahead. And right now, as of Friday, we have $585,000 and $12. Those $12 are key. We have $585,012, which is about where we were last year, and 61% of the way to our goal of $960,000. We, however, only have 123 pledges, which is just 38% of our goal for total pledges. We need 325 folks, families, to claim that this place is a place you support with your own life, and with your own love and your own effort. And in fact, those $12 of the $585,012 do count. They count profoundly. What we need right now is not for any single person to give until it hurts, but for all of us together to give at any amount so that it feels good and we know that we share this goal together. Meeting that participation challenge of 325 pledges will unlock additional funds, and we hope that you'll take the chance to pledge today. You can email me if you want. You can email our stewardship team. You can give online on our website. You can talk to our stewardship team in the fellowship hall. The time is now to give us the freedom to do that planning that we need to do. And to highlight that more fully, we have a video today prepared by Eric and Carrie and our stewardship teams focused specifically on the sacredness of this place and how your gifts can support it.
And River Road is really great at remembering that it's not just our faith, but it's our actions that matter. So what I want to say about the Land and Labor Acknowledgement Task Force is that we wanted to acknowledge our land's history, both the Native American and the enslaved people's history. But we also are pledging to be good stewards of the land here at River Road. My kids grew up through River Road. I know I've been here 25 years because my son was just under a year when we first started coming here, and he's now 26. Having that history of my family here and having the opportunity to see the new families here and how their kids are learning about the UU faith, that really makes me just feel good inside.
We're trying to get the church, and I'm sure we will succeed, on the National Register of Historic Places, because it is a totally distinguished example of mid-century modern architecture from the 1960s, done by a well-known local architect. It's a way to acquaint and reacquaint the congregation with what a distinguished and important building we have. 2025 will be the 60th anniversary of the building, the main building. And I'd like to have the designation in hand. It's an additional element of celebration for how we have maintained and actually improved this building over time. Next year at this time in the pledge drive, we'll be talking about what a great building we have and how important it is to keep taking care of it.
The Earth Ministry team was looking into potentially adding solar panels to the building. And so somehow I got hooked up with Bruce Davis, who was sort of leading the charge on the Earth Ministry team. I'm an attorney, I work for a solar energy company. And so I felt like I had something that I could offer the project. It really aligns with our values and especially our stewardship of the earth, of our environment, making sure that the world that we leave to future generations is as good as or better than the one that we had for ourselves. The congregation's been really welcoming to my family and me since we came here back in 2018. And it was just great to be able to add a little bit of my own experience and contribute a little bit to helping the congregation achieve something that aligns with our values.
We had this big climate convocation, and many other UU congregants came from all over the area, not just the DMV, but a little bit outside, because there was this feeling that we're all pulling in the same direction, but we're all pulling separately. How can we get everybody together? And our congregation and our building was the host congregation for this. And we now have an organization called UU Maine, the UU Mid-Atlantic Network for the Environment. And we stay in touch. We have working groups that are working on things like advocacy in the General Assembly, on buildings and grounds. How can we help all our buildings go solar? What is it? How can we share our expertise and our knowledge? And I think that River Road is playing a really big leading role in that. Like a lot of UU congregations, but particularly ours, I think, inspires this idea that we are not separate from creation, that we are part of it.
And now, as we prepare to take this light we have kindled out into the waiting world, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies guide us and those we love and those we do not love forward together till the day spring breaks and the shadows flee away. Amen.